Hello there folks, it's Toby Jones here and welcome to today's video. Today we're going to be talking about one of my favourite vocalists, possibly of all time. But a fairly recent discovery of mine, and that is Roy Orbison. And today I'm going to be talking about my discovery of Roy Orbison back in 2018. And also talking about one album in particular, which you can see just over there, which really ignited my love for Roy Orbison. So the reason for me doing this actually is the other week I was quite bothered that I hadn't got a CD compilation of Roy Orbison. I've got a vinyl one, as you can see here, the all-time greatest hits of Roy Orbison, but if you watched my video from a couple of weeks back, which is that I've effectively switched from vinyl to CD, I was bothered that I hadn't got a greatest hits set on CD. So a couple of weeks ago I saw this in the charity shop, which is a fairly recent release, well, if you call 2016 recent. Roy Orbison, The Ultimate Collection, released in 2016, and this was 50p in a charity shop. By the way, I bought this, it was a really good buy actually. I bought this and Gary Moore Legacy, which is a double disc greatest hits compilation of Gary Moore. So to get these two for £1 was absolutely fantastic. This Ultimate Collection, released in 2016, is just a single disc compilation, but I'll tell you what, it really packs a lot in to that single disc. I'm not sure if you can see because it's orange writing on the back of that, but there's 26 tracks, 24 being Roy Orbison tracks, and the final two tracks with Travelling Wilburys, which was the supergroup that Roy was part of for a couple of years before he sadly passed. But this album really brought me back to the memories I have of discovering Roy Orbison back in July 2018. I want to talk a little bit about that, and mainly about the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra album, A Love So Beautiful, and talk about some of the interesting reaction that's come from that and what I think of that album. So, really, I hadn't really heard any of Roy Orbison before 2018, it's fair to say. And I remember subtly being, because I was on work experience in July 2018 for a week, and listening to Smooth Radio a bit that week, I heard, probably for the first time, 3 of Roy Orbison's tracks, which were You Got It, Only the Lonely, Pretty Woman, and also I think I Drove All Night. And really liked the vocal, and obviously Roy Orbison's vocal is pretty much so different to anybody else, so recognisable that you pick up on it, and I think I Drove All Night particularly became quite an earworm for me. But beyond that, really didn't go much more into Roy Orbison until I went to Florida in America in 2018, a couple of weeks later, ironically. And the brilliant in-flight entertainment on Virgin Atlantic has albums, films, anything you could want really. And I was looking through the albums, something to play. I'd got my iPod, but I thought I'll have a look through the albums on here of what to play. And I saw this on the in-flight entertainment, which is A Love So Beautiful, Roy Orbison and the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra. And I thought, well, I'm on the flight for 8 or 9 hours. I've liked a bit of Roy Orbison, what I've heard before, and I'll go into it. And wow, I'm really, really glad I did. So this album opens up with Roy Orbison's track In Dreams. And what this album does, and a couple of the other Royal Philharmonic Orchestra albums I've listened to, it gives effectively 30 seconds or a minute, a really nice build up to the first track. So if you listen to the original version of In Dreams, it very much starts with Roy Orbison's vocal immediately, but the orchestral arrangement of that 30 seconds or a minute is beautiful. And then obviously that build up to then Roy Orbison's vocal coming in, I was just impressed, so hooked. So listen to this album all the way through, was really hooked by particular, again the tracks I hadn't heard before, It's Over, Dream Baby, Blue Angel, Uptown, Mean Woman Blues, A Love So Beautiful, the title track. Oh, for a long time, for probably 6 months, that was my favourite song. And then I also really liked the duet of I Drove All Night with the country pop group Ward Thomas. I thought that was a little bit different. I do like duets quite a bit. Depends on who it is. If it's just for the sake of it, it irritates me a bit. But I really like Barbra Streisand's duets album. I think that's fantastic. There's been a couple of duets albums that I think, well, that's just a bit of a money grab and doesn't work. But I think Orbison's duetting, obviously married up with the samples, not done in real time, unfortunately. But I thought that was a really good duet. There are a couple of weaker arrangements on here. I think that, just looking at my notes here, You Got It, Only the Lonely, Pretty Paper, probably, which is obviously his Christmas song, aren't the best arrangements, but overall as an album this really holds up very well. So after this I probably got it, I guess I probably downloaded it and listened to it, because I hadn't got the vinyl or the CD yet. So I put it on my iPod, listened to a bit of it, but didn't really listen to too much of it. And then I think we got all the way to possibly the end of 2019. And I was really into vinyl at this point, and a local job lot of records came, about 10 or 12 records. Some of those being, I think, Neil Diamond, Frank Sinatra records, which I'm into as well. And one of those included was this, a Monuments compilation, the all-time greatest hits of Roy Orbison. And this is a double set of Roy Orbison's greatest hits. Really nice gatefold with talking about some of Roy Orbison's tracks. So on the first album, just trying to not get in the way of the microphone, on the first album you've got a lot of the tracks from here really, but a couple of additions out. So you've got Only the Lonely, Leah, In Dreams, Uptown It's Over, and then on side 2, Crying, Dream Baby, Blue Angel, Working for the Man, and Candyman. So the additions are Leah, Working for the Man, and Candyman. And then on side 3 and 4 you've got Running Scared, Falling, Love Hurts, not going to try and pronounce that one, Shadad Aroba, I'm Hurting, Mean Woman Blues, Pretty Paper, The Crowd, Blue Bayou, and Oh Pretty Woman. So again, the additions on that, you've got Falling, the one I couldn't pronounce, The Crowd, and Blue Bayou. So this was my next introduction, if you like, to Roy Orbison. And you know, I liked this. But it was really staggering how some of the arrangements, particularly for the tracks like It's Over, Uptown, In Dreams. Is Uptown on this? It might not be on this. Yeah, it is. Sorry, it is on this. They felt really flat compared to this. So I kind of listened to this a few times and then went back to this. And then next, after that, I went on to this. Roy Orbison's Mystery Girl, which has got obviously a couple of tracks from the Love So Beautiful album. So you've got You Got It, A Love So Beautiful, but there's a couple of other brilliant tracks on here. So you've got She's a Mystery to Me, that's really the big one, I would say. California Blue I like, and In the Real World I like as well, but She's a Mystery to Me, that's a brilliant track. Obviously Love So Beautiful as well. Again, I don't think you can really say it's a 60s arrangement idea. A Love So Beautiful on that Mystery Girl album falls a bit flat as well. So I was like, well, the originals are good, but this is particularly great. And from this, I moved on to a couple of the other Royal Philharmonic Orchestra albums, in particular the 2 Elvis ones, which I'm going to talk about in another video a bit more in depth. These are good. They are good, maybe great, but possibly not as good as the Roy Orbison edition. And I've also bought this fairly recently, the Buddy Holly Royal Philharmonic Orchestra album, and that's a bit okay, I would say, at the best. But where I think that the Love So Beautiful album really gets a plus is because you've got the backing of the orchestra, and obviously the grandiose and the range of Roy Orbison's voice really benefits from that orchestra, I think. And you do wonder whether, if I went back in time and listened to maybe this first, or in some sort of universe, maybe I hadn't listened to any Roy Orbison and listened to this first, would I have been so into Roy Orbison? I don't know. Perhaps not. The interesting thing is to go against that idea, there was a second edition of the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra album brought out with different tracks called Unchained Melodies in 2018. And that, I think, suffered from A, a weaker song selection, and B, just a bit of a, I think, almost a bit of a rehash of the first. Maybe this selection of tracks is so perfect that anything is going to feel a bit weaker afterwards. Even a track I like massively, which is She's a Mystery to Me. Funnily enough, it's funny what tricks the mind plays on you. Before recording this, I had written down on my notes, the Unchained Melodies album isn't great, but there's a track called She's a Mystery to Me from this album. I'm just showing off the fact I've got both CD and vinyl now, aren't I? But the track I really like off that album, I said, is She's a Mystery to Me. And I thought in my head that the Unchained Melodies version is actually superior to the one on the album. Well, in the last 10 minutes I've quashed that, because the album edition on that track is far superior to the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra edition of that track. So it does make you think whether it's just a one-off that this is so brilliant, or whether it was almost maybe a cash-in to do a second album, because they did the same with Elvis. I haven't thought about this before, but I'm just going to quickly review the Elvis ones, because looking at this actually, because this was the If I Can Dream was the first one, and then again similar to Orbison, the year after they released the one review. And in fairness, actually looking at this, there's not much in it actually, but this is slightly the stronger. So perhaps there's some merit in the argument that maybe they picked the best tracks on the first, and then not the rejects I want to say, but some of the weaker tracks on the second. The one thing I do like with the Elvis one, which I don't want to mention too much because I want to do a separate video, is that Elvis had such a range of hits, that a range of great songs, that some of the lesser ones are covered and some of the lesser tracks are covered better, but I'm going to shut up about the Elvis one. But it is interesting that there's some people who say that this is maybe a bit either a cash grab or just an extension of the greatest hits that was released the year before. So almost why bother? What I haven't said is, you'll see the vinyl edition here, and I bought the vinyl in probably 2020, late 2020. I saw it on eBay, and I think that was only £7, which for an album which I guess was £15 or £20 new is pretty good. So just to show you, the gatefold of this is nothing special, unfortunately. It's just a picture of Orbison, and then on the back you've got just a larger set list. So there's nothing, but there is a nice booklet included with the vinyl edition, which I can't seem to find. There we go. So I'll just quickly show you that while we're here. So that's I think it's the same as the CD actually, but it's just got a write-up about Roy Orbison's sons and some of the people that have worked on this, and also their first opinions on Orbison. Just a couple of pages there, a couple of write-ups, and then just the detail of who performed on these tracks from the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra, which is a nice touch as well. So that's all fine and dandy. But I probably played the vinyl record once, haven't played it since, but it's a nice artifact to have, I think actually. It is a nice one to have, the vinyl edition of A Love So Beautiful. But I guess to wrap this up, because this is all about discovering Roy Orbison, where do I go next? And the answer to that is I don't think anywhere particularly. I don't think I've got the interest to go through the whole catalogue. What I would like to do, and what's great actually, I read a classic rock magazine. I promise this is coming back to the main point. I read a classic rock magazine yesterday, and that at the end of most of those magazines, a feature which is really good that they do, they pick an artist. So it was Johnny Cash in that instance, and they list a couple of essential albums that you have to listen to. I think 3 or 4 good albums, and then 3 or 4 to avoid, which would be great to know about Roy Orbison. So I might go on a site like Rate Your Music or All Music just to see what Orbison's best albums might be. But apart from the greatest hits sets, I haven't really listened to a lot of Orbison, with the exception of Beautiful Dreamer from the In Dreams album, which ironically was on a Dreams advert a few years ago, which in the UK is a bed manufacturer and retailer. I loved that track. And then the track Memories from Cry Softly Lonely One. Is that the album? That's what it's called? Yeah, from 1967. Ironically, just to see if it was a cover of the Elvis track, but it wasn't. But you know what? I loved that all the same. And then the novelty track was obviously Penny Arcade from the Big O, released in 1970. But beyond that, I don't know a lot of Orbison's other tracks. It's not on the top of my list as such to go through Orbison's catalogue, but if you are a big Orbison fan and think that I should, let me know down in the comments below. But that's the story really of how I discovered Roy Orbison, all through this album with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra. And as I said, maybe without that I wouldn't have discovered Roy Orbison, which I think is a merit to the album itself, and obviously that I would probably prefer to listen to some of those arrangements over the originals, so I'd rather listen to this over this, or indeed, sometimes, on some occasions, this. Is real testament to how good the album is, I think, personally, but other people might think differently, and albeit as long as you listen to some sort of arrangement of the Orbison tracks, that's good with me, because Roy Orbison, what a musician he was. So that's been me talking about my discovery of Roy Orbison and a couple of his albums. What are your thoughts on Roy Orbison? I'd love to know down in the comments below. Really enjoyed talking about Roy Orbison. As I said, I'll be talking about the Elvis Royal Philharmonic Orchestra albums in probably a couple of weeks' time. I'll do a couple of videos on Elvis as well, talking about my discovery of Elvis. And maybe if you'd like to see more stuff like this about how I discovered individual artists, because it's great going back down the memory train for me as well, it's brilliant. Let me know also down in the comments. Make sure to subscribe for regular album reviews, film reviews, and just general ramblings on music and film. Thank you very much for your company today. I've been Toby Jones, and until the next time, I will see you all later. Goodbye for now.